Good evening and welcome to Chicago Newsroom 2.0. I'm your host, Andy Zopp. Tonight, we'll spend the entire half hour taking a closer look at some of the most hotly contested races and critical issues on the ballot during the March 19th primary. We'll get started on the other side of this short break. Stay with us.
I'm Kimberly Loftus. On the next edition of In the Money, we'll discuss college debt. Is college still worth the investment? And if so, how to manage it with my guests, Tanya Wittenfeld and Tish Griffin.
First, look at the costs, but also look at the career path that you want to take.
Join the conversation Thursday at 7 p.m. on CAN-TV Cable Channel 19 or stream live on cantv.org or on the CAN-TV Plus app. Experience the power of community television.
Election Day is just under 2 weeks away, and early voting has actually begun in this year's primary elections. Although the races at the top of the ticket for both parties are not in question, there are several other hotly contested political races, including Cook County State's Attorney and Cook County Clerk of the Circuit Court, as well as congressional races in both the 4th and 7th districts. To help us all get up to speed on the issues and the candidates and what's at stake, I'm joined at the Roundtable by the host of CAN-TV original program 3 Questions with Hugo Balta and Austin Weekly News reporter Francia Garcia Hernandez. Welcome back, both of you. So happy to see you and really excited to get on to talking politics. So I'm going to start with probably the issue that's been in the news quite a bit lately, and we touched on last time we were together, Hugo, the Bring Chicago Home referendum. I think the supporters of the referendum were getting excited and there was some momentum. But just last week, a Circuit Court Cook County judge supported and went on behalf of people who were trying to challenge the ordinance and blocked it from the ballot. So what about that? What do you think what do you think is going to happen with that? I think I heard earlier today that the Board of Elections is going to appeal.
So the judge pumped the brakes, right, on the idea of taxing the rich to help the poor. In this case, an investment, a much needed investment on the unhoused. So it's still on the ballot. People will get to vote on it. But the issue will be what happens afterwards. If indeed the people who are pro Bring Chicago Home will be successful in it being legal. So everybody can still vote on it, but whether or not it means anything, it's yet to be seen.
Yeah, but don't you think, I think that's going to lead to some confusion, right, Francia? What do you think? I mean, people are hearing it's not there and they're going to either skip it or they'll go, maybe I shouldn't vote. You know, how big a loss is this for supporters of this referendum, including Mayor Brandon Johnson?
Well, it is certainly something that was gaining a lot of track, a lot of attention, and it was boosting Mayor Johnson's promises. You know, he promises during the campaign, it was getting close. It looked like it was going to be on the ballot and had a chance to pass. It will still be on the ballot, and I think people will be confused, but supporters on both sides, well, supporters and those who are against it are campaigning saying, you know, you should still vote because we don't know what's going to happen, and I think that's the message that's trying to be shared right now, so close to the election day, and while voting is happening, early voting is happening. It is kind of a loss, I think, to Mayor Johnson. He has been vocal about pushing forward, challenging it, and making it, you know, go through, become legal, and be something he can bring home. But it feels like a loss. On the other side, many, you know, people and groups who were against it are seeing it as there is a way to counter this too progressive agenda as they see it that is being pushed by Mayor Johnson. So it's definitely an interesting topic on a lot of people's minds. And it is an interesting topic considering that there are so many vacant buildings in the downtown area. So I'm not surprised we're seeing this pushback from groups and real estate groups that are trying to stop it, because if they decide to get rid of or sell or convert their property that's been vacant for a long time, they will see, you know, these taxes. And I think they're trying to protect their interests,
Right. I think that's a really great point. I think what I've heard them support or people in opposition to the referendum say is that the downtown area is already very challenged, and that actually, if you're looking at investment, dollars into the city to build and grow, that those dollars are already under pressure and not happening. And that this will just increase, a significant increase, which this referendum, if approved, would bring, will hurt that and will damage even more what's already kind of struggling. I don't know, Hugo, I know you've been talking a lot to the activists. What's their response to that?
Well, there's a little bit of trying to sift fact through fiction. What Mayor Brandon Johnson proposes is nothing new. If you look at Southern California, the mayor for Los Angeles did something similar, and that passed. But it wasn't. It didn't really have enough teeth, and the rich always found a way to loopholes in order to avoid paying those taxes. So I think this is not a good look for Mayor Brandon Johnson. I think you're right. He's someone who needs a W and fast. We're just coming out of winter, looking at spring, but people are still talking about the response to the migrant crisis and his proposals, ideas on how to house them during the winter months. And now comes this. So he's nearing a year in office, where a lot of media and people are going to be looking at his first term in office and report card. And this is yet another, if not C, at least a D in his report card, where he really needs to be stepping up and getting some of those W's.
Is there an opportunity here, you think, to think about, if the referendum, let's just say, stays off the ballot, to think about compromise, some other pathway that works with developers and those interested in making investment? Because I think the theory and principle behind what he's trying to do makes perfect sense, right? That you increase somewhat the taxes on people who are on transactions that are already pretty significant, but also to address the homeless issue, which is a significant issue for the city. But at the same time, if we don't have development and investment, it's a real challenge for other tax revenues, right? So maybe there's room to some space in between. I don't know.
Yeah, and realistic, right? We've seen over and over again the discussions and debates about affordable housing, including with new development, and having certain units that are specifically for people who don't have the same economic means as others. But over and over again, and especially on the north side, a lot of resistance by the community of those neighborhoods for fear of what they perceive to be a bad element. So yes, there are different ways in combating homelessness and providing affordable housing. It is what is the political appetite, and also the appetite from neighborhoods that are often the ones that are pushing back, right, and have the money to support the oppositions to some of these ideas.
Right. Well, we shall stay tuned, as they say, but make sure when you're voting that you vote on the referendum, however you're going to vote, because those votes may get counted. So let's move on. Let's talk about the state's attorney's race. So Kim Foxx has had 2 terms and has said she's going to move on and take her accomplished career and move on to some other responsibilities. And so the race, we have a race of 3 candidates, well, 2 candidates in the Democratic primary and 1 perennial candidate in the Republican primary. So the Democratic primary is Clayton Harris III, who's a public policy professor and former prosecutor, and he's also been endorsed by the party. And then former prosecutor and appellate judge Eileen O'Neill Burke is also running against him on the Democratic ticket. And then on the other side is Bob Fioretti, who ran last time, was a Democrat, so former alderman, was a Democrat, and now he's running unopposed as a Republican. So he will be in the election in November. So we'll get to that in a minute. Let's talk about the Democratic primary. So what are you hearing? I haven't seen any polls. So are you hearing? What are you hearing, Hugo, about the race between Harris and Burke?
And I think there's also a third candidate in some of the races that we're going to be talking about, and that's Toni Preckwinkle, right? As someone who's the president of Cook County Board, but also involved with the Democratic Party, she has a strong influence in regards to the candidates. So Harris has the support of the Democratic Party, but it's a sort of double-edged sword. He was asked recently if he would be seeking Kim Foxx's support, and he said yes to that silenced the crowd when O'Neill said absolutely not. So I think that he is looking to continue some of the progressive agenda of Fox, who successfully won twice. So the fact that there's a perception of her not being strong on crime, which is what O'Neill is running on. There's some validity to that, but the proof is in the pudding in regards to her successful 2 bids, and also Harris continuing that work and really looking to, he's saying that you can have safety and justice at the same time. It's not one or the other. And the support of the Democratic Party is going to be big.
Yeah. Francia, what are you thinking on the race? I agree. I think that Judge Burke is absolutely pushing a tougher on crime kind of agenda, and is running on that stance. And certainly people there are many people who are anxious to hear that. But I do think there's also, as we saw with Mayor Johnson's election, a big, strong push for progressives. So I don't know, what do you think?
Yes, I think you're right, and you hit those points perfectly. I think we are seeing a strong push for more progressive policies, but we're also seeing the narrative of crime is up, and when crime is up, people tend to vote to more tough on crime stances. We have to remember it is a primary election in Chicago, and primaries have very low turnouts, 30, 35. So it will really be about who is out voting and who has, that power. I think we've seen a lot of organizing, a lot of campaigning, and a lot of groups, more progressive groups, getting people to vote and being there and knowing about the issues that matter to them. So we might see Harris, take the win. But it is important to say that Burke is leading in fundraising, and she's gotten some big endorsements. So, she's putting on a fight, that's for sure.
Right. And I think, look, it is, I think you nailed it. It's about getting out the vote, right? For when Mayor Johnson, we know CTU really helped really drive voters, getting the vote out, and that made a big difference. So it's going to be who gets the vote out. But you're also right, it is a primary, but it's in Cook County, of course, the primary is not the race, but it's pretty close, right? Now here, it looks like there'll be a Republican candidate, somebody that people have seen before, former Alderman Bob Fioretti. Do we think he has a chance, once he wins the Republican nomination, of putting up a real contest for November, Hugo?
I don't think so. I think, we're in a solid blue state, and Cook County certainly follows suit to that and actually drives that. I think you're right. I think while this is a primary election, lower voter turnout, a lot of the candidates that will win in March are shoo-ins to win in November.
Right. I think that's a really thing. I think we got a little bit of time left before we have to go to break. Let's talk about the Supreme Court race. So we have a contested Supreme Court race between sitting Justice Joy Cunningham, who was appointed to the seat, and Judge Jesse Reyes, who's been a long time judge on the circuit and appellate courts here. What are we thinking? It sounds like that race has really been heating up. Francia?
Well, I think Joy Cunningham has significantly raised more money than Reyes, but Reyes has support of several Latino leaders and several Democratic leaders as well. It is a very interesting race. I think it also comes down to what people know, and I think in the past, voters were not as informed, or maybe were not as caring about who was in the Supreme Court, but as we've seen lately, there is more interest in that. So there will be, I think it's an interesting election. Joy Cunningham has a track record, and I think that's what she's, boasting and using. She's been on all levels of the court, including the Supreme Court. So she's kind of going on that experience, while Reyes is posing himself as bringing more representation of the Latino community to the Supreme Court. So very valid points on both sides. I really can't tell who's gonna who's going to win.
Well, it is. It's going to be. It's an exciting race, and you're right. Justice Cunningham has a lot of background and support, but Judge Reyes has been on the bench for a while himself. Right. We are going to come back to this already fascinating conversation. We will be right back after this break.
This week on Change Agents, we will meet some leaders who are working tirelessly to empower our youth through restorative justice advocacy, trainings, and practices.
So a lot of the infractions that kids are getting locked up for are things that are just kids being kids.
Join me Thursday at 7:30 p.m. on CAN TV 19, stream us live on cantv.org, or watch us on the CAN TV Plus app. Experience the power of community television.
Welcome back to the Roundtable. We're going to keep digging right in. We're going to move to the congressional races. So we've got two big congressional races up. In the 4th District, Representative Chuy Garcia is running again for his 4th seat, and he's got a challenger, a well-known challenger, Alderman Ray Lopez, who's been outspoken, Southwest Alderman of the 15th Ward, a very outspoken critic of Lori Lightfoot and of Mayor Johnson. So it's a hotly contested and active race. Both men, interestingly enough, ran for mayor last year, and with Alderman Lopez dropping out pretty early, and Representative Garcia actually seeing it through to the election for the runoff. Is this close? How's it going? Is Representative Garcia going to keep his seat?
I think it's Garcia's to win. I think he's done a much better job of fundraising in regards to that. I think he's also a very progressive, popular name, successful in the work that he's done. Unfortunately, Alderman Lopez leans conservative in the Democratic Party. He's been very, very critical and also unsuccessful in the races, as you mentioned, falling very short and dropping out very early in the mayoral race. So I think the big question is what comes in November. As I believe, Congressman Garcia will be successful. He's been successful in continuing to win, but his percentages have decreased. He was 80% before 2022, and he won with 68% of the vote. So it continues to chip away at his success. So we'll see what happens in November.
Yeah, and I think, Francia, you mentioned this before, it's about who gets out the vote, because in that particular district, there is a lot of crime and violence, and Alderman Lopez has been very outspoken. He's raised a lot of issues. He's tried to do a lot of work in the community around violence. And I think that's an issue that people really care about. So could be something that would generate people coming out to vote in a primary, which, as you say, if there's low turnout, it matters who comes out. So I don't know. Do you think maybe there's a pathway for him here?
I agree with Hugo. I think it's Garcia's to win. But it will be interesting to see how voters, participate, and if there is some significant support for Lopez there. I don't think Lopez will win, but I think Garcia, there might be some support for him. I will say Garcia also has been known and respected in the suburban Chicagoland communities. Right. He has a track record there. So when we look at that, Lopez has been more vocal and active in the city. So he may not have those votes, but he might have more city votes if he manages to get, people's support.
Right. That's a really great point that the district is broader than just the city itself. So let's move on to another and a long-time Democratic incumbent, Representative Danny Davis. So in the years when we're spending a lot of time talking about candidates' age, we should note that Representative Davis is 82. But we're spending a lot of time noting that doesn't mean you can't be an effective elected official, right? And we're going to have to get comfortable with that, certainly for whoever is going to be our president. But Danny Davis has a long and impressive track record. Has been 14 terms in his House seat. but he had a close race, a relatively close race his last time against Keena Collins, who's in this race as well. There's also 3 other candidates in the race. Curry Marshall, who's a former deputy director for Governor Pritzker, and Nikhil Bhatia, who's an educator and a former principal, and most importantly, truly a powerhouse in a political powerhouse in that district or area is City Treasurer Melissa Conyers-Ervin, and who's also running in the race. So, what do you think? Are the 3 against him going to split the pot of potential opposition, or is Congressman Davis, does he have facing a real challenge here?
I think you're right. His age, 82 years young, has been put into question, but undoubtedly Representative Davis has a long history and commitment to the community. That said, of a very crowded field, I think Keena Collins has the best shot. She's been maybe third time's the charm for her. She's been continuously chipping away at that gap, 46% of the vote in 2022, and I think she, as a progressive, is seen as a good successor to Representative Davis.
Right. I don't know, Francia, what are you hearing out there?
Yes, I agree with Hugo. I think Melissa Conyers-Ervin also has some name recognition, and she's well known as city treasurer. She's also connected to Alderman Jason Urban. So there is some power behind her campaign. She has fundraised a significant amount of funds. But Keena Collins has been campaigning in the community several times. She was close in the last election, and she has expressed her support and respect for Congressman Davis in several events. So I think she has a strong presence in the community. She has managed to get her name out there and get people to recognize her, and she might be the next one. Though I don't know, Congressman Davis has so much history in the areas. He's so well known. He has an impressive track record, and I think for some voters that speaks louder than age.
Right. Let's talk about the clerk of the circuit court of Cook County. So current clerk is Iris Martinez, a former state representative who's had some issues in the role, some ups and downs, some real challenges, and she's being challenged by the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District Commissioner Mariana Spiropoulos. And Commissioner Spiropoulos has been active in the Democratic Party for a year. She's been on the Water Reclamation District for a while. She is also endorsed by the Democratic Party, and I saw recently an endorsement by the Tribune as well. So what do you think is going to happen there? Francia, I'll go there first. Where do you think is Clerk Martinez in trouble?
I think she's in for a fight. Mariana Spiropoulos is definitely getting a lot of attention, a lot of support, and a lot of name recognition. And I think in some of these primary elections, name carries some weight. And her name is out there. I've been driving around the city doing my reporting, and I see her name continuously. And sometimes, even though it should not be the focus, sometimes just seeing that name so much and being familiar with that, and then seeing that she has garnered support and endorsements, sometimes that speaks to voters as this is the strongest candidate, or this is someone I should be paying attention to. So I think she has an advantage there over Martinez.
Right.
Some of that name recognition comes with having deep pockets,
right, exactly.
and having the resources to be on television, radio, print, digital, etc. A full disclosure, I work in the PIO office of the Circuit Court of Cook County, and I think this is round 2. Again, Clerk Martinez certainly on the ballot versus Mariana Spiropoulos, but this is also Clerk Martinez versus the machine, the Democratic Party, and of course President Tony Preckwinkle. Clerk Martinez didn't have the support of the Democratic Party the first time around, and she was successful in winning. And I think based on her merit and what she's accomplished in a very short amount of time, has earned the right for a second term. But I do think, as Francia said, a lot of endorsements, a lot of visible endorsements, that does pull weight. It's going to be about getting the vote out. It's going to be a difficult climb, but Clerk Martinez is used to this.
So let's one more race I want to talk about. Then there's a couple other topics if we have any time left. And that race is, of course, the race to replace Mayor Johnson, his seat as commissioner. He appointed Tara Stamps to that seat, and she's now currently a commissioner, and she's running to keep it. And she's running against a candidate named Zerlina Smith Members, who's run before. She's an advocate, victim advocate, and political consultant. There's also a candidate, James Hume, who's running as a libertarian. But I think, it sounds like the race is really between Tara Stamps and Smith Members, who Tara's now running as an incumbent. Also, or Ms. Stamps is now, Commissioner Stamps is now running as an incumbent. I don't know, so where are we thinking Smith Members has a chance to do a turn or to win in this race?
I think it's Stamps to lose, right? She was the anointed one. She's got the backing of the Democratic Party. She's got the support of the teachers, Chicago Teachers Union. So I think this is a rematch from the summer in regards to getting appointed, and I think she's gonna win.
Okay. Is that what you're hearing as well?
That's what I'm hearing as well. Smith Members is known and respected in some parts of the west side of Chicago, and she has certainly done a lot for victims of gun violence, and she's been an advocate, but I don't think she has the the support and the leverage needed for this race, and Tara Stamps, Commissioner Stamps certainly does.
We are out of time. Hard to believe. It's been a great conversation, and I hope everybody that you're recognizing you have some real choices in this primary upcoming election. And so I hope we'll be right back after this. Thank you again, both of you, for being here today, and I'll be right back with my final thoughts.
Hi, I'm Bianca Cotton. On a new episode of Behind the Confident Smile, I'll be sitting in conversation with Nicole Salah Spencer.
It feels good to participate in just the healthy start of families.
Join the conversation Monday on CanTV Cable Channel 19 and streaming on cantv.org and CanTV Plus app. Experience the power of community television.
We are blessed to live in a democracy where we have a protected right to a say in who governs us, and who governs us matters. Just ask the devastated families in Alabama whose access to fertility treatments has been eliminated by their Supreme Court. But our democracy is without question under attack, whether it is by those who sought to prevent Congress from doing its job of certifying the legitimate election of President Biden because they didn't like the result, or by the numerous state legislatures across the country who are expanding restrictions on who, when, where, and how people can vote. Democracy, our constitutionally protected right to have a say in who governs us, is under attack. So to those who say, my vote doesn't matter, so why bother? I say your not voting absolutely will matter, because the one critical way we can protect our democracy is by exercising and utilizing our right to vote. That is how we protect the freedoms we hold so dear and far too often take for granted. The time for clinging to the false luxury of not bothering to care is long behind us. My grandfather was born and raised in Mississippi. Despite being a U.S. citizen and despite trying to register, he was never able to vote because of the color of his skin. Today, you have the right to exercise your voice with your vote. Shame on you if you throw that precious right away. Thank you, Chicago, for joining the conversation tonight. Until next time, be well and well informed. Good night.